Hello, everybody. Welcome. So excited to have you here today. I know we're live, so you guys are going to start, jumping in between YouTube or Facebook or wherever you're coming from. I know several of you guys are already commenting now. Good to see you. Go ahead for those of you who are joining in right now. Type in where are you at right now. Tell us where you're from. I know we got Leah here. She's in Utah. Excited about passive investments today. Nathan Bills as well. Passive investments. Out from Washington. We've got Ken from North Florida. That's awesome. Hopefully, that's an area I'd like to go visit someday. We got David Blackhurst, also Utah. Wow, we got a couple of you people from Utah today. That's pretty good. So definitely excited to have you guys here. Keep commenting, keep asking questions because I am going to address these questions as we go along. I'm not going to be able to see most of it as we're starting to get into the presentation, but I will see it at the end. So if something comes up, talk about it. Bring it up. Darren and Deb from Washington State, welcome as well. Good to see you, or good to see your comment in there. I can't see you. You can see me. It's not a two-way mirror, I guess. So anyways, definitely excited to have you guys in here today because we are going to talk about passive income. How do we really maximize your money through passive investments? I want to dig into that and really just kind of take it to a level that's not just, educational, but it's actually something you can take and implement for yourself in your own life. So how many of you guys are excited for that? Go ahead and type that in the chat. I'm sure I'll probably see it a minute later after you put it in. So anyways, if you're excited, let's say, just go ahead and type in, let's go. All right. All right. Danielle already said yes. Good to see that too. Okay. Let me bring this up. That's not the one. There we go. We'll make me smaller. How about we put me in the corner? Boom. All right. Okay, so as we talked about, here's the big thing. If I could show you how you can create at least another thousand a month of passive income without taking a lot of time and energy, two, kind of along with that, it's starting like a new business that claims passive income, but really you're creating a part-time or full-time job. That's not what we talk about when we talk about passive income. And it doesn't require a ton of financial training. You don't have to be a financial genius to do this, which is like hundreds of our clients have done, including myself, that we've already done over the last decade. Would you like to see how that's done? If so, awesome. That's what we're getting into today. If not, if you were thinking of something else, if you thought this is going to be some opportunity to join some business, it's not, right? I'm not teaching any of that kind of stuff here. It's literally teaching good content. But don't worry, if you want to know like ways to implement and work with us, we'll talk about that later. Okay. There's no doubt I'm here to basically tell you, here's how you can actually work with us. But the truth is, you could actually take this information and walk away and possibly do something with it. It may not be good, yeah, but you'll at least be able to do something with it. So today I'm going to really cover is like, one, how do you find money to invest? Like, where do you get that money from? Two, what are my favorite investments that your financial advisor does not want you to know about? Believe it or not, financial advisors are not incentivized to teach you what I'm talking about today. And of course, the third one is what does it actually take for you to become financially independent in the next 7 to 10 years? Now, I'm going to put a disclaimer. I'm not saying that any of you guys are going to be financially independent in 7 to 10 years. It could take much longer than that, depending on how your situation is. It could be shorter too. We've had people that we've talked to saying, wow, your income goal is 10,000 a month. We can get you to 10,000 a month this year. That's definitely possible. Some people are like 2 years. So it could be shorter. It could be longer. But often the people we talk to, 7 to 10 years is actually not too far fetched for those that we've worked with one-on-one. And we've worked with hundreds and hundreds of clients to do this kind of thing. Now, here's a bonus up ahead. We will offer you this passive income calculator we're going to talk about here. You can actually find it on our website, moneyripples.com, but that's going to be kind of like the big action for you to take. Now, I'll just kind of get you in the story here about my passive income journey, because obviously I practice what I preach. I don't teach something that I don't do, right? My inspiration actually came from my family, especially my father. I was raised at a very typical American household, lower to middle class. I even lived in a trailer park for about 4 or 5 years. So that's something kind of unique about me and my childhood. But my dad was a hardworking guy. He taught us things. My mom did as well. They taught us to be good people, to be of integrity, to, live what you preach, to work hard, to follow your dreams and that sort of thing. But when it came to money, it wasn't such a fun conversation, right? It was usually about how we didn't have enough of it, right? It's like, hey, we can't afford this. What do you think? What do you think I am? Made of money? Money doesn't grow on trees, all those kind of phrases you've heard. In fact, put in the comments if you have any phrases like that you heard growing up about scarcity of money, and maybe it was money doesn't grow on trees, or maybe you can't afford this. Go ahead and type that in chat. I'd be curious to see what things you heard growing up. But I heard those things too. And so, after a while, and I remember even my dad saying he thought that his job would literally kill him. I thought, I don't want that. I really don't want that kind of life. And so I went to college. But while I was in college, I realized that if I wanted real freedom, I probably had to take control of it myself. I couldn't just follow the typical standard status quo of 9 to 5, working a job until you die, hoping for a pension, which I knew those were going away. I knew that I probably had to become some sort of business owner. And so I actually dropped out of college, was looking for something, and found actually being a financial advisor was on the table. Didn't know it was so easy that all you had to do is pass a test and just not be a criminal, and you could become a financial advisor too. That's the bar. It's really as high as, well, pretty much as Death Valley. That's about how high the bar is for financial advisors. So, anyways, long story short, I got into that profession. Actually, really liked being my own boss, my own business owner. I was commission only. But several years in, then my dad, said to me, he said, "Chris, you're a financial advisor. When are you going to advise me?" I said, "Oh, I probably should." And I never thought he would, because he was very guarded about his money. He didn't like to share those kind of things because he was afraid of losing money. And so, long story short, I sit down with him at his table, and as we're sitting at his table, and we're going through all this stuff, I see that he's stuffed money in his 401k for decades, right? He's been saving money from his work for a while. He'd paid off his house early. He said, "I paid off in 18 years, Chris. I'm very proud of that. I'm totally 100% debt free." I mean, really, you look at a situation, you'd say this guy was like the poster child for Dave Ramsey, really before Dave Ramsey became Dave Ramsey, if you know what I mean. Like this, my dad's older than Dave Ramsey, so he probably taught Dave Ramsey everything he knows. So, I mean, again, my dad was frugal. He would say frugal. We said cheap as kids. But he was definitely, he tried to live within his means, paid off all of his debt, save everything he could. And as I looked at his numbers, I said, "Dad, if you want to retire today, you better hope you die in 5 years, because that's about what the time you're going to run out of money." "Okay, Chris, that's not what I want to hear. What do I do?" And I thought of like different strategies in my head of what I could offer as a financial advisor. I thought about, different stock, or mutual fund type strategies, and even annuities and things like that. But at the end of the day, I just said, "Dad, honestly, I don't know. You did everything right, according to what I do as teach as financial advisor. I could try to see. I mean, you've got this paid off house, but I wouldn't put that in the stock market. So I don't know what you could do there. And honestly, I don't know if the stock market is going to go up or down. So I can't promise you anything." And it left me in this dilemma, because I realized I couldn't do anything for him. I couldn't help my dad get that freedom to break away from the job that he thought would literally kill him from the stress. And so as a result, when the teacher's ready, the student appears. I'm talking to my friend, and I trained this friend, Doug, here. I trained him to actually be a financial advisor, but he left to go do this crazy thing called real estate investing. And I thought, "Oh, great. Here we go. Good luck. Come back to me when you're broke, when your dreams fail." And I mean, I was a really positive person as a financial advisor, you can tell. So anyways, I call him up, and I'm expecting to hear that, maybe he wants a job back with me again. That's the exact opposite. In fact, it was a total opposite. He said, "Chris, my life's amazing. My dad and I are partnering on real estate deals. And guess what? We've doubled his income as a professor at the local university." Isn't it ironic that two paths, Doug takes one with his dad. His dad, in a matter of months, is at the point where he's doubled his income. My dad, I'm saying, I hope you don't die too soon, or don't live too long in that sense, right? And so it intrigued me. And I remember Doug really brought up a good point. He says, "Chris, well, how many of your clients are truly financially free where they don't worry about money?" I said, "Well, they all worry about money, because they're all worried about not having enough in retirement." He says, "Well, what about this, Chris? How about you guys as financial advisors? How many of you are financially free, not off the commissions you're earning, but actually doing these investments?" As I really thought about it, I realized none. There's guys been working here since the late 1970s, and they still can't retire either. And that's when it just hit me like a ton of bricks. I said, "My goodness, I'm in the wrong profession. I'm teaching something that hasn't even worked for me or for anybody else. Why am I teaching this?" And I tried to make it work, but I just couldn't. I had to quit. And so I left, vowed never to do it again, but instead follow the path like what my friend Doug was doing with real estate investing. Now, he was doing a lot of flipping and things like that, which is more active real estate. But I was more intrigued by the passive side, because what if I can get my money to pay me? What if I get the equity from my home to pay me more than the payment of my mortgage, to where I can make money from nothing out of pocket? those kind of things intrigued me so much to the point that as I started to implement it, later that next year, I was able to retire myself when I was 28, almost 29 years old. And that's kind of where I've been today. Now, I've had ups and downs and lefts and rights, like the recession kicked my butt. I had to do it a second time. When people say, wow, you retired twice. How is that possible? You screw up the first time. That's how you do it. If you do it right the first time, you don't have to do it twice. But I did. And so I had to do it again. And it took me till the end of 2016 to get to the point I said, wow, I do have enough streams of income coming in that I don't have to keep actively working anymore. And that's the big thing, guys. Like, it's not like I'm a genius here, guys. It's really not. I mean, I figured out a few things that got it to work. You can do the same thing as well. So there's really is hope for you to do this kind of thing. But I'm here to tell you guys, like, this is the key, is that cash flow is what creates freedom. It's not about how much money you have in the bank, although that helps, but that's not it, because we've had so many Dave Ramsey poster children, people that have paid off all their debts. They've saved sometimes millions into their retirement accounts and then still come to us saying, but Chris, we don't know how to live free. We don't know how to have enough because our financial advisor is saying only live on 3%. That's not going to work for us. If we have $1 million, live on 3%, that's 30,000 a year. That's not enough, not just to pay our bills. That's not even enough for us to even live a life of quality where we can go visit grandkids or travel or do the things that we want to do whenever we want. And you're right. It's about the cash flow. That's the real key. And that's what really rocked my world. That's what got me away from being the financial advisors. I realized it had nothing to do with accumulating money. It's about the cash flow. Now, I'm going to say this. This is who it's not going to work for. If you don't have a penny to your name, I'm telling you, I already did a podcast on this recently. You can go look it up on our Money Ripples channel. I did a podcast about what you can do if you have little to no money. There's some ideas there, but it's going to require time and energy. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You're going to need to actually do something. Like, you're going to have to actually work. Okay. There's no get rich quick thing. It's not like you do nothing. It's not the Instagram kind of life you hear people talking about. You actually have to do something. The only way for your money to be passive without you doing something is to have money. Okay. Now, if you only have like 20,000 bucks and that's your emergency fund, we're not investing that. That's not money to do. You should have at least minimum $100,000 before you even worry about this kind of conversation. I'm not saying you can't create passive income out, with less. There's definitely ways to do it. But I know from our perspective, when we were looking at the clients that we've consult with, and we're not investment advisors, we actually consult clients and strategize with them, work with them one-on-one, help them figure out what to do with the monies they do have, and then where are the places they can put it. Different types of investments in the alternative space, things like real estate investing that actually has a real asset backing it versus gambling in the stock market, right? And so for those kind of people, we want to make sure that it's the right thing. And so we want to make sure they have at least 150,000 before they even work with us. If they don't, then you don't really get to diversify your money much. You might only be able to get into like one investment deal. And so you're not really diversified. There's not a lot of options. And so it's not that you can't make passive income. We just usually don't work with clients unless they have at least 150,000. But if you've got money, not just at least good 6 months of cash reserves for your money that's sitting there for emergencies only, not for investing, and then you got other money as well, I'd say at least 50, 100,000 plus dollars on top of that. Well, now there's starting to be some options here. Otherwise, you're going to be looking for ways to use your time and energy to create more income. So there is still hope for you guys. If you don't have, let's just say you're in the situation where maybe you don't have a lot of money or any at all. Yeah.
Hey, Chris, your presentation's not working. I was trying to get a breaking point to let you know. It's stuck on the first slide.
It's what?
It's stuck on the first slide.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Now, this is still live though, right? You guys can still see me.
We're still live. Yeah, exactly. But it's just the PowerPoint's not working.
Oh, okay. Okay. I see some of the comments. Ron had mentioned some of that too. Yeah.
I'm jumping out. You can go on now.
All right. I'm going to restart this. I'll just see if it works, but at least it's mostly been story time. All right. That's good. So, all right, we're going to go back. Let's see if this works. All right. You seeing it now, Danielle?
Yep. I'm seeing it.
Good. All right. So that's where we're at the Lord of the Rings meme there. So,
yeah, but you're not, it's not in presentation mode though. It's just,
it's not?
Yeah, I think that's where the issue happened last time.
Oh, okay. Hold on a sec.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I didn't want you to go too far. I know you have like more numbers and things to show, so I don't want to go too far without the presentation.
Yeah, that's weird. Okay. I'm not sure why it's not showing up, but worst case, we wing it, right?
Yeah. You're good at that.
I try to be. Yeah. Okay. All right. So Again, is it working in presentation mode right now?
No, it is just on the slides, which I mean, you can do that. If you just X out the always use subtitles, we can just run it this way.
X out, always use subtitles. I don't know if that is.
Oh, so X out a presentation mode and then just go to the editing mode.
Oh, okay. But it
And
doesn't
just
work in presentation mode?
Yeah, it's not working right now. I don't know if it's a StreamYard issue, but yeah, we're having that issue right now. Sorry, guys,
Okay,
for the technical
cool. Well,
issues.
we'll just do this then. We'll make this work. How
Yeah,
about that?
that we're moving now.
Get
That's
rid, get rid of the subtitles. There we go.
Yeah,
'Cause
there we go.
I don't need subtitles either.
Now I'm getting out of here. Sorry to hijack your presentation.
I'm glad. It's like I said, guys, I can't really see your comments when it's in full blown presentation mode. I wish we could. So, all right. Well, whatever reason it works, it's perfect. So, yeah. So if you don't have money, cash flow secrets, that's a course that we have. We'll put a link in the comments just so you can have that. That would be a better course to do to build up, so you have the foundation, the preparation to then be able to find money to invest. So that's a great one to have if you're in the situation you don't have money. If you do have money, awesome. You're gonna love this. Okay. Like I said, most people don't get it that when we teach this kind of stuff. You know, the financial advisors and the Dave Rams of the world. I mean, it's just a foreign thing to them. And we got so many things going on right now, right? I mean, we can never tell what the news is going to happen. We got the Feds raising interest rates or not raising interest rates, and they're not going to lower them yet, right? So we got that problem. We got guys like Dave Ramsey out there saying if you invest $100 a month for 40 years, you're gonna have $1.176 million, and he's telling you don't have to be broke. But guess what? I ran the math for you because I know he believes the market does 12%, which it doesn't, but he believes it. Well, even when I ran at 12%, $100 a month for 40 years, guess what? He was $200,000 off. So people are buying into this crap, thinking it's true. And by the way, he shares this all the time. Like I've seen it on Instagram, I've seen it on Twitter. This guy posts it everywhere and doesn't even check his own freaking math. Okay, 979,000. So you're not even a millionaire at $100 a month. You got to save a little bit over 100 a month, and that's if you say you actually earn 12%, which again the market has never done. Okay. So we get those problems going on. And even worse, people follow his advice. Look at this top comment. If you can see it here, it says, Dave, I followed you since I was 18 years old. I'm 50. So over 30 years. I've lost my entire retirement in the stock market. I've done what you said, but I've lost almost all of it. Is there anything else you recommend? So even after they lose all their money, there's like, well, do you want to give me other advice? Do you want to help me lose more? That's ridiculous. We're following the blind guides, the people that they don't even do it themselves. By the way, Dave Ramsey invests in real estate and business, not so much in the stock market. We got inflation. That's an issue too, right? And then we got even our IRAs and 401ks, which the government can change the rules at any time and start taxing you more if they chose to. And you can do nothing about it. Zero, nada. You are completely out of control when you basically make the government your partner in these 401ks and stuff. And so we got all the stuff, especially when we're going to debt. I mean, 30 trillion in debt. This meme is a year old and we're already over 34 trillion in debt, guys. That's over 10% more in debt. Don't you think they're going to try to find a way to make money? Yes, it's called taxes, right? And even worse, it doesn't just affect you, it affects generations after you. You create a legacy of scarcity that continues on, a legacy of ignorance, where if you keep buying into the same ideals that you're taught by financial advisors, you will keep being broke like most. By the way, here, key point, Fidelity. I looked up all their investment accounts. They have 45 million clients. Only 750,000 have at least $1 million saved up. 750,000 people out of 45 million. I can guarantee you there's more than 750,000 baby boomers that have saved for decades that are trying to get to $1 million and haven't got there yet. And even then, 35% of them surveyed by Transamerica said they think it would be a miracle to be able to retire. A miracle. So that means less than 1% of people that have been saving Fidelity think they even have a shot. That's a 1% chance. Imagine if you went to Google, look up a restaurant, debating if you're going to eat there, and you saw 99 one-star reviews and only one 5-star review. You just say, oh, those 1-star reviews, they don't count. Oh, I'll follow the one 5-star review. You wouldn't do it, would you? Why would you go to a financial advisor that has the same kind of success rate of less than 1%? And it's true. Now, financial advisors could probably say more than that because they'll only take people with certain amounts of money and they might be able to get them there. But the truth is the average American, less than 1% are successful at doing this strategy. Why do we keep doing it? We need something different. This is where cash flow has to be the focus, not accumulating your money in stocks and mutual funds that go up or down, like just bipolar all over the place, right? We don't need that. And here's the deal. If you don't find way to make money while you sleep, you will work until you die, as Warren Buffett says. We need multiple streams of passive income. And that does not mean you go on YouTube and have people make loud noises to wake you up in the middle of the night so you can make 16,000 bucks there. That's not making money while you sleep. That's torture. Okay. We don't need you to do that kind of stuff. Oh, but it's going to require you to take a different perspective, to question everything you've been taught, and essentially take that matrix red pill to do something different. Now, here's the big thing that people always run into. They always hear about stocks being better than real estate, right? I mean, you see these little charts that financial advisor will show you, the Ibbotson charts, as you can see right here. You can't really see the numbers because obviously I'm out of the full-blown mode. But I mean, you have like $1 in the stock market that goes and makes like $50,000, $60,000, after, if you put $1 in 1928, the stock market, that's what you're going to have. But here's the truth, guys. It's just not reality. And they'll even show you real estate and they'll say, oh, real estate can barely make anything. And they'll even show you little indexes like this, from 1989 till 2023, like things like the, stocks still beating home prices. But you know what? Real life, this is what it taught me. I actually bought a property, for example, in Tennessee in May in 2018. So just now going on almost 6 years. Now, I went and looked at the market. I said, what did the market do in that same period of time? Just redid the numbers this morning. It did 9.8% average. That's really good. That's bigger than the average of the stock market long term. So 9.8%. Now, I put a $32,000 down payment on that property. How does that compare to putting $32,000 in the stock market over that same 5-year, 9-month period of time? Well, here's where it is. In stocks, it would have done 71.2% over those 5.75 years. That's 71.2. So you would have got my 32,000 up to 54, almost 55,000. But guess what? I've made 156,000 with that real estate property, factoring costs and everything. That's net with net cash flow profit, as well as appreciation and everything else. That's almost a 400% rate of return. Is that guaranteed? Heck no. Did it help that the government printed a lot of money? Yes, it did. But it also helped the stock market too, which is why it did more than average. You created a bubble everywhere, right? So yes, it did more than what I would typically get for a real estate property, but it also did better in the stock market than typical too. Now, what does that mean in cash flow? Because again, cash flow is a real thing. You don't need to accumulate money. It's about what does it actually pay you to create income? Well, if I were to pull off that same 3% on the 54, almost 55,000, that leaves me about 1644 a year. But guess what? My net profit on that property, not even counting appreciation, just cash flow after I pay the property manager, after I pay for taxes, insurance, and my mortgage payment, still $73.50 a year. Do the math, guys. That's a pretty big, massive difference, isn't it? That's more than a quarter different, 4 times the difference, quadruple in just, again, 5 years. Same money, but again, better income. And guess what? I have a real asset. I don't worry about it going up or down. All I care about is the fact I make cash flow. Is it guaranteed? No, of course. It's, although we've had pretty good luck with this, we've had a good renter in there for really now almost 6 years. Yeah, somebody could move out. There could be a transition point. That $73.50 per year might drop down to $6,000 in a year if we have a couple months with no renters. Still, I'm kicking the crap out of the stock market regardless, And the nice thing is, because of rent, that income actually goes up every year. That's the thing I love. That's the thing that once I got it, everything I learned as a financial advisor started going down the toilet, right? By the way, here's the long term, the 30-year. I just updated. It's actually 8.1% as of today because there was a nice little low that happened in 1994 because we were kind of in a recession, and we're now at an all-time high with the market. So even with the all-time high right now and comparing to a low in 1994, still it's about an 8.1% return average of the market. Now, someone will argue me. They'll say, well, Chris, S&P reinvest dividends. I looked that up too, guys. It's only like 1.6%. So even then, you're likely to get maybe 9.5% or so. Not 12, not like what people claim. Maybe 9.5 if you're lucky. So here's my advice for you guys, right? It's these 3 things. Get lean, get liquid, get out. Remember this. Get lean, get liquid, get out. So what does that mean? First, get lean. Now, I'm going to talk about let me talk about get lean really quick before I jump into Warren Buffett here as an example. But get lean really means manage your money, being a wise steward of your money. You don't have to be cheap. You don't have to live on rice and beans. You can seriously just be doing what you're doing, but prioritize where you spend your money. Prioritize the things that actually add value in your life versus takes it away. So look for those things. I've had people that we've gone and done this. I had one person, she's a graphic designer. She was like so busy, ADD, all over the place, would never ever look at her money. And I said, listen, you need to start tracking your money. It was like pulling teeth for her. But once we got her to do it, here's what's crazy. Their lifestyle didn't change. They freed up $1,800 a month. That's 22 grand a year that they were able to free up by not changing the lifestyle, just by figuring out where their money is being spent and trying to reprioritize it. Because some places they're spending money, they're like, oh, that really isn't serving me. I don't really care about that. Sometimes it was on food costs and things like that. Other things were like cable. They were spending $300 a month for cable because the guy was a sports fan. It's like there are so many streaming services. You can get it for a much lower fraction of the cost. And by the time everything was done, all said and done, not even talking about taxes and things like that, we could free up too with good CPAs. They still freed up 1,800 a month. Guys, I've even had broke people living in a place where they make 2,000 a month, still free up $300 a month because we try to figure out how to make sure that their money is being tracked and they're being wise with it. It's not hard, but it does require discipline. And that's the hard part for people. But you start to do that, get lean, make sure you get to the point where you can get your expenses down. Then you can then get liquid. And get liquid is just having cash on hand, right? Buffett right now, he's got 155 billion. In fact, we're about to get a new report soon. I'm sure that number's even higher once that report comes out. 155 billion sitting in cash, just cash or cash equivalents, right? He's just letting money sit there. He's not even investing it right now. Why would he do that? Why? Because he's getting ready to do more of this, which is get out. Now, before I get into that, let me talk about how you can get liquid too. Where are ways to get liquid? Okay, well, getting liquid means having your money available to use. Locking up in your 401k at work is not being liquid because try to get that money out. They won't let you. If you try to get it out, they'll say, well, you can borrow it, but you got to pay it back with every paycheck. And you got to do it. Like it's required to come out of your paychecks. So it means that now your cash flow is being sacrificed. That's not being liquid. Even if you go to an application for a loan, they'll say that's an illiquid asset. Liquid assets are things like bank savings accounts, right? Things that you can actually cash out. Life insurance cash value. We talk about infinite banking and things. We're not talking about that today so much, but we do other classes on this too. Infinite banking and life insurance and things like that. Life insurance has a liquid account, a savings account that you can use. Mutual funds. Yes, mutual funds, if they're normal mutual funds, naked mutual funds as they call them, right? Those can be cashed out. Old 401ks, so ones that aren't in a current employer and IRAs and things like that, they can be cashed out. Although if you're not 59 and a half years old, then yes, they're going to charge you 10% penalty and then tax you. So not the best strategy. It's like getting penalized. You buy your own car as a teenager, then your parents still have to give you permission to drive it, right? It's ridiculous. Rental properties. You can now when I say get liquid, I'm not saying rental properties are liquid, but a lot of times there's equity inside those rental properties that could be liquidated. Many times we have people go do our passive income calculator. Well, see, you're not making as much cash flow as you should be with the amount of equity that you have in the property. And so could we sell those properties to get it to produce more? I'll give you an example of that here later. Home equity, your own house. Is there equity there trapped that maybe could be doing something more? Even though right now our interest rates are higher, there might still be some strategies that could work for you. If you've got gold, silver, even crypto. I talked to somebody recently, he's like, I've got about 100 grand of crypto. It's like, great, but it pays you zero cash flow. What if that 100 grand could pay you $1,000 a month? Would that be worth it? And who's to say you have to sell off all your crypto, right? But still, that's the thing is like you can actually get these assets to actually produce income. And that's what I mean by getting it out. So people always ask, Chris, what investments do you guys actually talk about doing? What kind of things do your clients do? Well, and again, we're not investment advisors, right? But here's the kind of investments that we see a lot of. One, turnkey rentals. I mentioned this. This is like what I had there in Tennessee. Turnkey rentals are things where they're properties where you have a property manager. In fact, these turnkey companies will help you find the property. So you don't have to go hunting, looking around for it. They have properties on their own list that you can go and buy. They help you get the financing if you need to get a mortgage for it. They even help make sure you have property management in place. Usually it's them as the property manager. And then from there, you get whatever's left over, right? So you get the cash flow after the property manager's paid, then you get the payment to be able to pay your mortgage payment if there is one, and you keep all the rest. That's a turnkey rental. You can invest anywhere in the country. That's the beautiful thing. I mentioned Tennessee. I live in Utah. I wouldn't dare want to buy a property here in the western half of the United States because there's just not good rentals out here. But when I look out east to the Midwest or the Southeast, much better options to make much better cash flow with less money out of my pocket. That's what I want. I want the best bang for my buck. So that's what turnkey rentals can do. You can actually have a property where you don't have to deal with the tenants, the toilets, and the trash, right? You have somebody else manage that. Now, is it fully passive? No. Do you have to still be a steward of your money? Do you have to be a steward of your investments? Yes. Sometimes there are decisions have to be made. On occasion, yes. There's been times I've had bad property managers. That's the worst part, right? If you get a bad one, not so great. But even then, I had a bad property manager. My worst real estate deal I've had in years was this last year, and I still made a 40% rate of return in less than 3 years on that money. Okay. So even in a bad situation, even where I wasn't as profitable as I wanted to be or as I should have been, still it turned out being better, much better than the same period of time. I would have barely made any money in the stock market over that 3 year period. Now, there's lending or notes. You can actually lend your money to investors, right? You can actually have a note. You can even be the bank in this sense. The banks, if you think about it, they have a note when they give you a mortgage. They say, here are the terms. You got to pay back this much per month. And if you don't pay back this much per month, we take the property out of your possession. Now, the banks don't really want your property. They just use that as kind of the threat, right? They have this collateral. So in case something does go wrong, at least they have something to show for it as an investment rather than the stock market where there's nothing to show for it. It can go to zero and you're out of money. But here you at least have a property. And so you could actually be the bank. You could actually be the one that lends money on that property. You still own and control it as the lender. And if they don't pay you back a certain amount per month, guess what? You take that property back and then you turn around and sell it to somebody else, right? You can do those kind of things. Again, there's people that actually help you do that. So you're not having to be the one that actively does these things. They're already set up for you. Funds. Now, when I talk about funds, I don't mean mutual funds. These could be funds where instead of just lending like on a specific property, where you can be a bank on a specific property, there might be a fund where they might say, hey, we got lots of properties that will pay you an X percent of interest for using your money. So you might be the lender in this sense, but you put it into their fund where it's diversified among many assets. And then they'll say, I'll pay you 10, 11, 12+% a year, depending on what their terms are. Sometimes it's a little bit less. Sometimes it can be more. But they'll have a fund where they, again, have multiple properties in there so that you have a little bit more protection in that sense. Again, nothing's guaranteed. And I'll just say this disclaimer. Is it possible you can lose money on any of these? Absolutely. The one that you're probably least likely to lose money in is the turnkey rentals, because at least you have the property. The lending, same thing. You can still take back the property even though you may not like it. Those first two, you have at least a little bit more assets. The other ones, you could lose your money, especially if something goes wrong within that company. So you need somebody who you can trust, like really trust, that has a good track record of doing this for many, many years, not showed up in 2018 and started investing in real estate. Apartments, you can invest in apartments. You don't have to buy the whole thing. You can invest with other investments. This is what they refer to as syndications. You pool your money with other investors and you get a share of that property, right? So again, you can buy an apartment or buy a percentage of it and be in it. Just so you know, lately, apartments and as well as self-storage units, which self-storage is pretty cool too, these lately haven't been as good. And so our clients haven't been investing in these things because a lot of the operators don't have any good deals. 6 months to 12 months from now, they might. But right now, it's actually been a bad market. So when people say, what do you think about apartments? If you're lucky, you can find a good one, but not great in this current environment right now. So I mentioned self-storage as well. You can obviously make money from self-storage. And guess what? There's no tenants. And if that tenant stops paying, you throw their stuff out or you lock it up and they have to you just rent it out and do something else. You don't have to worry about tenants destroying your place necessarily. Oil or mineral rights. I'm generally pretty against most oil type investments where it's speculative. They're drilling, they're trying to find oil. It's much better if you can get into a deal that actually has oil already discovered. It's already there. They just have to pull it out. The cool thing is you can actually kind of double dip on this sense. You can actually not just get paid rent from the oil companies, because oil companies actually don't want to own the land. They just want to lease it. They don't want to drill it. They have a business. They want to drill the land, pull the money out or pull the resources out and then make money off of it when they sell it. Well, you can actually own the land, rent it to them. And at the same time, they can also pay you a share of royalties when they do pull out those things like natural gas or oil and things like that. So you can actually get paid on actual oil or mineral rights. And then there's partnerships. Partnerships are where you can go in on certain deals, right? You might partner with an investor where, again, they're doing the work, but you're getting paid on that. I have one with raw land. I've invested about $350,000 and it's paid me over $8,600 a month. That's over $100,000 a year with my $350,000 invested. Again, results may vary, right? Some can do worse, some can do better. It just depends. But I've got about $700,000 of land that's now cash flowing from the $350,000 we used. That's now cash flowing about over $100,000 a year. So there's partnerships you could do like that. There even could be like partnerships in like, heck, we even got car wash syndications, people that might go into car wash businesses. There's partnerships, that might even happen in a sense of just a business or a franchise. There's a lot of different options there. They're just outside the typical mutual fund, stock market, gambling choices that you really don't get much of, right? It's you really don't get a whole lot of options when it comes to the stock market. In fact, when you start to realize that these things, especially when most of these things can pay 10+% a year, and that's actual income. So imagine if you have $100,000, a financial advisor would say only pull out 3%, that's 3,000 a year. But if $100,000 can make you even $10,000 a year, that's much better. That means your money's working harder for you instead of you having to work so hard for it, trying to accumulate, hoping you have enough. By the way, true story. I had a guy I talked to just last year, had $3 million he saved up. He's 53 years old. His financial advisor said, well, if you want to live on 500,000 a year, just keep going. If you get up to at least 18, $20 million, then you can live off a $500,000. I told the guy, I said, you want to live off $500,000? Just get your 3 million up to 5, make 10%, you make $500,000. And so, hey guys, it's crazy. So let me talk about some of these things. This particular guy here with Henry, Henry actually had a lot of equity. I mentioned like they're having equity in rental properties. He had one rental property with 700,000 of equity. He had a hard time letting go because it was his first little baby, right? And it was in California, making $200 a month. I said, listen, if you could sell this property, get the equity out and invest it elsewhere, especially out away from California, if you could in other markets, like out in the Southeast, for example, you'll make more money. Well, he did that. He just sent me an email a few months ago saying, Chris, guess what? I finally had the faith to do it. I did it, sold that property, took the equity. I just bought my 6th property, the most recent one being in New Orleans, and I'm cash flowing now over $100,000 a year, right? So he did it. He actually got it to that point where he said, yeah, I'm cash flowing now about $8,300 a month. That's the difference. 200 a month versus 8,300 a month, all because he got that equity that was trapped in those properties. Again, you're always told to pay it off. That was his perspective. He's like, I got to pay it off, debt free, debt free, debt free. He was so hyper focused on that perspective. He didn't even see the gold he was sitting on that could have been mined by pulling it out and selling that property and buying more properties with it. That one property made 6 more babies, and those babies are nice and rich for him, right? They make him a lot more money. We had another woman here. Her goal was, was making about 72,000 a year or 6,000 a month. Had 650,000 invest. She now got out of the rat race last year with her 650,000 in different things, from oil investments to debt funds. She had a real estate fund she did in different places. So she's diversified. That income can vary for sure. Again, these things are never guaranteed, right? But for the most part, she's now at the point she is work optional. She's still working, but she really doesn't have to. This couple here was interesting because we were talking with them and saw their numbers. So when you first start working with us, we send you a spreadsheet to fill out. Well, as we looked at the spreadsheet, their whole goal was just invest in real estate, right? They want to see options there. And they had a lot of money to invest. They had about 5 million in the stock market to invest. However, the first thing we noticed was, hey, we can actually consolidate some of these debts and refinance your house, pay off some of these debts, free up net about 3,800 a month. It was actually about 4,000 a month. I'm rounding down a little bit, but it was like 39 something. So almost 4,000 a month that they freed up. On top of that, I just got an update, and it's over 30,000 a year because we got them with a CPA that does a better job than their CPA was doing, saving them over 30,000 a year in taxes. So just between those two things, with no money out of pocket, still they're now about over 75,000 a year that they freed up. Then we worried about, trying to do some other stuff. By the way, we sold a rental that improved the cash flow by 2,000 a month. So already we're about 100,000 a year with not even investing that 5 million in stocks. Once we got to that, then they could actually start investing it and making a good couple $100,000 a year. They could have made 600,000 a year, but they're still holding on to some stocks. But that was their potential. But they got up to a couple $100,000 a year of freed up cash flow or increased passive income. The next thing here with this guy, I've actually, I've done several calls with him personally. Again, had all of his equity trapped in his property. He had a lot of land, and we're finally able to get that refinance out. And he was able to invest in a variety of different places, 232,000 a year. Dan, I had him on my podcast. He was in the military, had $1 million. Again, told by his financial advisor, you can live on 30,000 a year. He said, no, thank you. Got him to invest. And it varies, but it's roughly about 100 to 130,000 a year. He's getting paid on that money. And even Louis actually is really close. He was on my podcast as well. He's like a few $100 away from being financially independent, where he doesn't even have to work anymore. Literally just a few $100 a month less. But here's the thing. He works for Hollywood. Hollywood shut down during COVID, which mean he didn't get paid during that time. That's part of the reason why it slowed down his progress. And then two, the writer's strike last year in 2023 also affected his work. The great thing is that he was still getting paid from his investments, so he didn't have to scramble looking for work. He was safe. And plus, we had cash reserves for him as well. So here's the things, guys. We get a lot of people that want at least 10,000 a month passive income. Well, what if you want 100,000 a year of cash flow and you want to do it in 10 years? I mentioned 7 to 10 years. How do you do that? Well, you can start saving in a mutual fund. If you're starting from scratch today, start saving 19,400 a month. If you make 7% net, which by the way, Fidelity, they're in the last 10 years, their target index funds, their target retirement date funds only averaged 8% when the stock market did 10%. So they did 2% worse, and that's before you have the 0.75% fees taken out. So that means those funds are doing 3% worse. Even if you get the match, that match doesn't hardly make up for that bad performance, right? So I put that at 7% because if you have a 401k, that's what you're hoping for, really, in reality. So you got to save about 20,000 a month. Good luck there. You can't even save that much you can barely save that much in a year in a 401k, let alone a month. You can invest at 10%. If you get an investment that does pay a little better, now it drops about 5,000 a month. But if you get an investment even just 2% better, that's paying good cash flow at 12%, now you're able to save $37.20 a month. It's not a small amount of money. That's still, you're looking about 45 grand a year you're saving, but 45 grand a year for the next 10 years to create 100,000 a year, potentially, that's pretty dang good, right? So whether you're saving 45 to 60,000 a year, you could hit 100,000 from zero right now, potentially in that time frame. The big thing is, of course, is how much you can actually really save. That's why you want to get lean, get your money liquid, and then get it out. And that's where these come in. And that's where you can use the whole process. We talk about, having the right principles in place, using like max ROI infinite banking, which is really about using the supercharged tax-free savings account with your life insurance to then use that to invest, and so on. Now, here's the big call to action, right? Again, if you've got a decent amount of cash, if you got nothing in cash, the calculator will be interesting, but you're going to realize it's not going to be a very big number, right? You might even get a negative number or a zero, and that's not a bad thing. It just means that you need to work first and foremost on improving your cash flow so that you have cash to invest. That's what it means. However, if you take this passive income calculators on our website, this website's changed a little bit. I took a screenshot right before we revamped it last week. But there's still the passive income calculator tab at the top there, you see. If you get a result of at least 15,000, then we should be talking. You should definitely be talking to one of our reps just to make sure the numbers were entered correctly. By the way, key point here, okay, key tip, if you want to get an accurate number, put in all your numbers. So we see sometimes people will go in and they start typing their name and email address or whatever, to get the results, and then they don't put any numbers in. If you don't put any numbers in, you won't get any results. Now, some of you guys, you're already working with us. You don't have to do it again. You can do it for fun. But honestly, we can already tell you what that number is because it's the same numbers that come from my own brain. Okay. But really that's what it is. It's like, if you want to really see how much passive income's potential is in your situation that you can create in the next year, try that calculator right now. That's the call to action I'm going to give you here. Okay. By the way, we're kind of at the end of this. If there are questions, start typing them in. But let me just wrap up by saying this. Okay. I was actually driving to the bank, ironically, the bank one day, and I saw this on my map, and it was so unbelievable. I had to take a screenshot. You can see there's the normal place I could take. That's 1 minute. That's the fastest way. It's also the most economical way to do it too. Or I could take the slower route, which takes about another 25,000 days to get there. And I kind of thought of this really like the traditional path that I was teaching people to do as a financial advisor, right? Again, I was just a salesman in a suit. I didn't know any differently. I had a good heart, just like most financial advisors do, but I was trained by financial institutions that want you to lock your money away and leave it there forever while they make guaranteed fees off you, whether you make money or not. To me, that's kind of crooked. That they get paid, even if you lose money, whether you make money or not, you're always getting paid. That's not the way it should be. And so that's kind of what I realized. As a financial advisor, I was on that 25,000 day path. Most people are lucky that they even have any essence of financial freedom following that traditional 401k, saving in your retirement funds like IRAs and Roth IRAs and whatnot, hoping that someday they're going to have something. And the truth is that I've seen it. The reality is people are not getting there. They are delaying their life, right? They're waiting forever for someday. And that's the thing is that, guys, I don't want you to do that. Like, I think this quote's great. The most dangerous risk of all is the risk of spending your life not doing what you want on the bet you can buy yourself the freedom to do it later. There are so many people out there today, right now, maybe you even, that you think that somehow that this is going to work out for you. If you keep down the traditional path, the path that I was on myself, the path that my dad was on as well, you will find out when it's too late, it wasn't enough. And they're not going to, the financial advisors won't be the ones that will get blamed. It will be you. They'll say, you just didn't save enough. Or maybe, life got in the way. Well, that's your fault. It's life. That's just life. Too bad. That's just not good enough for me. That's why we exist. I don't need to do this, right? I have more than enough money coming in, but we are on a mission to get 1,000 families financially independent by the year 2030. Why? Because think of the ripple effect. Again, money ripples, that's our name. Think of the ripple effect that can be created when even just 1,000 families become financially independent. I think of a couple that we worked with in North Dakota where all we did was free up cash flow. We didn't even invest it, just improve their cash flow by $6,000 a month. And he did that first month? They bought a four-wheeler. Now, Dave Ramsey might have been pissed off about that, right? But I wasn't, because his wife said the truth about it. She said, Chris, listen, I know we would get judged if we spent 6,000, the very 6,000 we freed up the first month we bought a four-wheeler. But understand that this 6,000 a month gave my husband permission to not work all the way through the weekends, that he actually takes the weekends off. He's able to relax and play with his family. I got my husband back and my kids got their father back. Think of the ripple effect that does, not just for them, but what that shows for the kids. What kind of example is that set for them, that what's possible, rather than working a life of suffering, like I saw my dad talk about, right? Where, he had strokes in his 40s and heart attacks in his 50s. I didn't want that life. I didn't want to have that kind of stress. I wanted freedom. And I hope you do too. And I'll tell you, even just flash forward, like my dad, he's now almost 80 years old. He turns 80 this year. Never thought he would be alive this long. And he had to work into his 70s. And even now he's still stretching out those dollars. Again, he's doing an amazing job with that, with what he was given, right? But think about that. He was the strict saver. And the problem is this, is that although he's alive, the question is he really living? Is he really feeling like he's able to live and do and fulfill the dreams that he had, right? And that's not anything bad for him, because he's an amazing man, right? He's an awesome guy. But I can guarantee if you ask him personally, hey, what would you do differently? He probably would want to have more of his life back, right? To be able to have more options that way. So anyways, guys, if you have questions, put them in there. I'm at the end of this right now. So let's go ahead and I'll stop sharing and see what kind of questions you guys have for me. We've got a few minutes here, so I want to make sure I address anything that's perfect for you. All right, definitely see a lot of comments on the slides. And Ron, I agree with you. Definitely being a firm believer in passive income, that is the path to freedom and wealth. And I know you and I have had conversations of that over the years for sure. That's a huge one. All right, I see some comments coming in here. All right. Okay, another question. Here's from Ron. It says, what do you think about real estate investments outside of the country? You know what? I've been asked that a lot lately. And we've actually had a few guests on our podcast. Again, I invite you guys to watch the Money Ripples podcast, totally free. We do that as a service to you, of course. But we've had some people from time to time that are from Europe, for example. And every time, guess where they're investing? Right here in the USA. That doesn't mean you can't make money outside the country, but they're the first ones to tell you, no, you want to be investing here. Because here's a cool thing about the United States. It's a pretty massive country. Not to mention, there's all these little sub-markets everywhere. So even when you hear on the news, how you hear on the news that the real estate market's going to crash? By the way, that's the number one thing I keep hearing people say for really the last decade. They've been saying, oh, it's going to crash. It's going to crash. Is it? Well, first off, it hasn't, for one. And even when they talk about in the news when it crashes, it's usually like the hot markets that went just completely, there's chaotic, right? You have like the Phoenix, Arizona, where post-COVID, like it just went off, just flying off the handle. That's why when I saw apartment deals in Phoenix, I said, no way, stay out of that market. Too crazy. Tampa, Florida, same thing. It was getting too crazy. All those, even parts of Texas got a little too crazy. So again, I don't want to be in those places where it's hyped up. When the news talks about it, if the news says something, do the opposite. So if you hear the news say you should invest in real estate, don't invest in real estate. If you and by the way, nobody in the news is really saying invest in real estate. They're usually telling you how everything's slowing down, it's getting bad, and interest rates are too high. That's why it's actually fun to buy real estate right now. It's actually a great time to buy real estate because you're not competing with other people that listen to the news, right? And vice versa. Like in 2022, I heard everybody say, don't hold cash, you'll lose to inflation. So in 2022, I started building more cash. I started holding more cash for that very reason, because I knew leading into like this year and beyond, there's going to be a lot of people begging for cash. And in fact, I actually had a situation where the investor was saying, listen, I just need money for 3 months. I'll pay 15%. I said, I've got it. And so I did it, and 3 months later, got that money back. That's the kind of thing that's awesome. And when you realize you can sift through it. So yes, I've heard people talk about investing in other places. China, definitely do not invest in China. They're crashing, burning badly right now. But Europe, a lot of places in Europe really aren't that great. And even South America, again, there's just nothing quite like the United States. And that's why a lot of times we get people from other countries wanting to invest here, because there's better cash flow opportunities right here, in many cases under our noses. But Ron, to answer your question, not so much in Nevada. So Darren made a good point here. Yes, at least with one of the deals that we offer in our network of group of people, it is accredited. You do need to be a accredited investor. Very rarely will they have an option where they'll let you be non-accredited. If you don't know what accredited investor is, it means that you can qualify one of two ways. One, you either make $200,000 filing your taxes as a single person, or $300,000 a year as a couple, or two, you have at least $1 million in net worth, not including your home equity. So $1 million net worth outside of your equity in your house. Funny thing, I actually had a client who was really close to qualifying as a accredited investor, had equity in his house. I said, well, that's what's hurting you. I said, get a HELOC, pull the money out in cash, and all of a sudden you'll qualify, because they won't count the equity in the property. But when you pull the equity out, it counts as cash. He became a accredited investor. So accredited investor, just so you know, pretty much you can invest in almost any deal out there that's available. If you're not accredited, and this is even true with our clients, there's a much more limited options. You can still do turnkey rentals. You can still do things, some syndications, there could be like apartment buildings sometimes rarely on the oil space. But lending, often there's ways you can lend if you're not an accredited investor. So that's a big thing. Monique asked a question to kind of follow up to that. She asked here, she says, what is the reason that accreditation is necessary to invest in most opportunities? To put it bluntly, Monique, the reason is because the government thinks you're stupid. And somehow they think if you put a dollar amount on how much money you have, that somehow you're smarter, which the truth is, it's not. It's a dumb, arbitrary number they created. They're even talking about making it more strict. They're even talking about finding ways to make financial advisors or investment advisors qualify. So it's really a dumb rule, in my opinion. But again, even if you're not accredited, there are options. And I'll tell you, even some of the best options in our network don't require accreditation. It doesn't require you to be that accredited investor. Okay. And by the way, there's no like badge that you get or anything. It's literally just, they take a look at your balance sheet. Do you have enough assets, or do you make enough money on your tax returns? Great, you qualify, right? It's not like a huge ordeal, although some people will be more strict about it than others. But again, there are plenty of opportunities outside of that. But if you are in that place where you make at least $300,000 a year, or you have at least $1 million net worth, yeah, I mean, you've got pretty much a run of the gamut of the options you can have out there. Any last minute questions before I let you guys go? While we're waiting, because again, it does take some time for it to show up here. I'll put this in here. There's a free gift, that cash flow optimizer. Oh, we'll give that as another little gift here too. That's that Excel spreadsheet I talked about. You put all your information in. Great tool just to track your progress. By the way, here's how I use it. One of the best ways I love to use it is actually keeping a tally of it currently. But then I'll actually once per year save a copy. So I actually track my progress, whether it be my cash flow, even my net worth, track the progress as well. And that might be another way to kind of see how close you are to getting to that accredited investor thing. Again, it's not necessary to be an accredited investor, but it definitely gives you a lot more options. That's for sure. So yeah, definitely check out that cash flow optimizer. And Ron, I appreciate it. I would love to connect with you again. It's been a long time. So anyways, guys, obviously if you have questions, you can always reach out to us at moneyripples.com. But I would say this, try that passive income calculator, especially if you got money, you're wondering what to do with it. Great way to test it is test it out. And if it's at least $15,000, you should be talking to one of our reps to find out, all right, is this legit? Can I actually do this? And if so, how? So anyways, guys, make it a great day. And again, we're always here to serve you, and we'll talk to you later.